The notice was printed in the Millbrook Gazette on a Thursday in March of 1881, set between a listing for seed corn and an advertisement for a dentist in the next county over. It was not long. Most of them were not. The men who placed those notices had learned, through trial or through plain stubbornness, that a woman reading the back pages of a small Missouri newspaper was not reading for poetry. She was reading for truth. This one had it. I have one leg. I have 200 acres and a barn that does not leak. I am 38 years old. My name is Gideon Marsh, and I farm the land my father cleared in Callaway County. I am looking for a woman of steady character, who does not need much explaining to. I will not pretend otherwise about the leg. It has been this way for 6 years, and it will be this way until the end. If that is a difficulty, I understand. If it is not, write to me at the address below. Vera Aldrich read that notice 3 times before she set the paper down. She was 31 years old. She had worked the telegraph desk at the Millbrook rail station for 4 years, and in that time she had received and transmitted more words than most people spoke in a lifetime. She knew how language sounded when a person was trying to be something they were not. She also knew what it sounded like when they were not trying at all. A man who led with what he lacked had nothing left to hide. This was the second kind. Gideon Marsh had been born in Callaway County in the spring of 1843, the second of 4 sons on a working farm that his father, Henry Marsh, had broken from raw prairie over the course of a decade. He had grown into the land the way farm boys do, slowly, steadily, without ceremony. By the time he was 20 years old, he could read the soil and the sky with the same calm attention his father had, and he expected to spend his life on those acres the way his father had spent his. He lost his leg in the winter of 1875. A saw blade at the Boonville mill, a moment of inattention, and then 6 weeks in a doctor's house 40 miles from home, while his father managed the farm alone. He was 32 years old. He had not been married then. He had been close to it once, with a woman from the next county who moved to St. Louis in the autumn of '74 and wrote him a letter that was kind and final. When he came home from Boonville with a pine leg fitted below his right knee, he did not speak about what had happened to many people. His younger brother Eli helped him through the first winter, his father through the second. By the third, he had made most of the adjustments himself, not without difficulty, and not without days when the adjustment seemed more trouble than it was worth. But he made them. One of those adjustments was the porch step. He had widened it himself, 18 inches wider than a standard step, set at a gentler angle, so that the crossing from yard to porch did not require the kind of precise balance a narrow step demands. He had built it in the summer of '77, planing the boards himself one evening after supper, when he was tired of the minor indignity of the original step. It was worn smooth from 6 years of daily use by the time Vera Aldrich read his notice. The farm was 214 acres in the rolling bottomland west of the Missouri River. He grew corn and kept a small dairy herd. He had a dog named Patch, a brown and white setter who had belonged to his mother and stayed on after she passed in 1878. He had a well that did not run dry, and a barn he had shingled himself the summer after the accident, working from the ground up rather than from a ladder, taking 3 times as long as any other man might have. His neighbor, Mrs. Deering, a widow who lived 2 miles east, had told him plainly, over supper one November evening, that a man with land like that, and no wife, was wasting something he could not get back. He had thought about that for 2 weeks before he wrote the notice. He sent it to 4 papers and received 11 replies over the following 3 weeks. Vera Aldrich had grown up in Millbrook, the only daughter of a schoolteacher father, and a mother who had died of fever when Vera was 9. Her father had taught her to read well, to think in complete sentences, and to say what she meant without dressing it in extra words. He had died in 1877, leaving her the house on Birch Street, and a savings that carried her through the first year, before the telegraph position opened. Millbrook suited her well enough. But she was 31, and practical enough to know that the things she wanted, a household, land, something with weight and constancy to it, were not going to come to her through a rail station desk. The men she knew in town were already married, passing through, or not the kind she was looking for. She was not impatient about it, but she was honest with herself about it, which was perhaps the same quality that made her stop when she reached his notice. She had never answered one before. She had read them sometimes, out of curiosity more than intention, but this one was different. She read it a fourth time. Then she took a sheet of paper from the desk drawer and began to write. She told him her name, her age, her occupation. She told him she had no remaining family in Millbrook, and that this was not a grief she carried heavily anymore. She told him she had read his notice carefully, that the part about the leg was not a difficulty, and that she respected a man who said a plain thing plainly. She told him her father had been a school teacher, and that she had grown up believing plainness was the highest form of good manners. She did not tell him she had read the notice 4 times. He received her letter on a Tuesday morning, when the cornfields were still showing frost at the edges, and the sky over Callaway County was the flat gray of a Missouri February ending. He read it at the kitchen table, with his coffee going cold beside him, and then he read it again. Of the 11 replies he had received, hers was the only one that had addressed the leg directly, rather than stepping carefully past it, as though to name it would be unkind. Every other letter had moved quickly from the mention of his notice to a catalogue of the writer's own qualities, as though the leg were a formality, to be acknowledged and forgotten. Vera Aldrich had not done that. She had addressed it and moved on, which was precisely what he did himself every morning, when he crossed the wide porch step and went to work. He wrote back the same afternoon. Over the next 7 weeks, they exchanged 14 letters. Vera kept them in the cigar box her father had left on his desk. Gideon kept hers in the chest of drawers beside his bed, beneath the extra quilt his mother had sewn. He told her about the farm, the south field that flooded in wet springs, the dairy cow he called Mrs. Crenshaw because she had opinions, the dog Patch who slept near the wide porch step most evenings. He told her the barn had been his father's and the roof his own work. He told her about the Boonville mill and the winter that followed, not at length, but honestly. She told him about the telegraph desk and the 1,000 words a day that passed through her hands belonging to other people. She told him about the Birch Street house and the sound it made in winter when the wind came off the river. She told him her father had believed that a person's character was visible in how they chose their words, the direct one or the soft one, and that she had come to believe this was true. She told him about the 3 women in Millbrook she still corresponded with, and what each of them was like, so that when he eventually met them he would not be starting from nothing. In his 6th letter he wrote, "I have told you most of what there is to know. I would like to meet you, if you are willing." She wrote back, "I am willing. I can come on a Saturday if that suits you. If this story is finding you at the right moment, there are more where it came from. Subscribe so the next one reaches you too." She arrived in Fulton on a Saturday morning in May, having taken the early rail from Millbrook with a traveling bag and the cigar box of letters tucked inside it. Gideon met her at Whitmore's General Store on the main road, neutral ground, public enough that neither of them had to manage the weight of a farmhouse at a first introduction. He was standing at the corner of the store's porch when she came up the road from the rail stop. She recognized him not from any description he had given. He had given none, but from the way he stood, very still, his weight balanced carefully, one hand resting on the porch rail. He was taller than she had imagined. His hair was dark with gray beginning at the temples. He looked at her without looking away. She said, "You must be Gideon Marsh," he said, "and you must be Vera Aldrich." They stood there a moment in the May morning light, each taking the other's measure, the way 2 sensible people do when they have spent 7 weeks in letters, and arrived, finally, at the same road. He said, "There is coffee inside, if you would like some." She said, "I would." They sat at a small table near Whitmore's window for 2 hours. Mr. Whitmore occupied himself behind the counter, with great concentration on tasks that did not require concentration. Vera asked Gideon about the south field and whether it had flooded that spring. It had, he told her. 6 inches over the low rows before it drained. She asked about Mrs. Crenshaw. He said the cow was opinionated but productive. She laughed. It was the first time he had heard her laugh, and it told him something he had not been able to learn from letters, that she laughed the way she wrote, without performance. He asked whether the telegraph work had ever grown dull after 4 years. She said, "The work does not grow dull. The town does." He nodded. He understood. Before she took the afternoon rail back to Millbrook, he walked her to the station. On the road, he moved with the gait she had expected. Slightly uneven, deliberate, a small economy of motion that spoke of long practice. She did not look at his leg with any particular attention. He noticed that she did not notice, and he filed it away as information. At the station, she said, "I think we should meet again." He said, "I think so too." She came back 3 weeks later, and this time he drove into Fulton with the wagon. They walked the main road, and then he asked if she wanted to see the farm. She said yes. It was a Thursday afternoon in early June, when she first came up the long drive between the cottonwood trees, and saw the farmhouse, white clapboard, solid, with a wide porch across the front, and the rocking chairs his mother had brought from Kentucky 30 years before. She saw the wide porch step at the base of the stairs, 18 inches wider than it needed to be, worn smooth and pale at the center from years of daily use. She stepped up without comment and looked out at the fields. She said, "You can see a long way from here." He said, "That is one thing it has." He showed her the barn. She looked at the roof he had shingled from the ground up and said, "That took some doing." He said, "It took the better part of a summer." She said, "It holds." He said, "It holds." He wrote to her 10 days after that second visit. He said he was not a man who required long deliberation on a thing once he understood it, and that he understood this. He asked her plainly if she would consider marrying him. He said she had seen the farm now, and she knew what she was looking at. He said he would not make promises he was uncertain of. He promised only that he would be honest with her, that the farm was sound, and that there was room for her in it. She read the letter twice. Then she wrote back, yes. They were married in the Fulton courthouse on the 14th of July, 1881, with Gideon's brother Eli and Eli's wife as witnesses. Vera wore a blue dress she had made herself. Gideon wore his best shirt and a jacket he had last worn at his father's funeral. The ceremony took 11 minutes. On the drive back to the farm, with her trunk in the wagon bed and the July sun high and white overhead, she reached over and took his hand where it rested on the reins. He did not say anything. Neither did she. She learned the farm the way she had learned the telegraph, methodically, without drama. By September, she could tell the healthy corn from the struggling by the color of the silk. By November, she knew which boards in the floor had begun to soften, and she had put a nail through 2 of them herself with a hammer from the barn. She kept accounts in a ledger she started from scratch, because his had gaps going back 3 years. The thing she had not expected was how much she liked the quiet of it. At the telegraph desk, she had spent 4 years at the center of other people's urgent words. Here, the urgent things were the weather, and the cows, and the price of corn at the Fulton market, and none of them required her to train her full attention outward before the morning light had settled. The wide porch step became, without either of them naming it as such, the place where the day began and ended. In the mornings, Gideon brought 2 cups of coffee to the step, and they sat at the top stair, while the light came up over the east field. In the evenings, they returned after supper. The dog Patch, who had been wary of her for the first 2 weeks, eventually arranged himself across both their feet as though he had always done so. After Patch died in the winter of '83, they placed the next dog, a cattle dog named Sam, in the same spot. and he took to it in a week. In the second year, she planted a kitchen garden along the south wall of the house. In the third year, she expanded it to include a cutting bed for flowers, which Gideon regarded with good-humored uncertainty. He said he did not see the purpose of a flower that could not be eaten. She said neither did she, and yet there it was. It was in the autumn of 1883, 2 years into their marriage, that Vera found herself rereading the original notice. She had kept it folded once inside the cigar box, and she took it out on a rainy October afternoon, while Gideon was in the barn. The paper had yellowed at the folds. The print was still clear. I have one leg. I have 200 acres, and a barn that does not leak. She sat with it for a while. Through the kitchen window she could see the barn roof, the one he had shingled himself from the ground up, holding through another Missouri winter. She thought about the man who had written those 2 sentences, and decided they were enough to lead with. Not the Cottonwood Drive or the rocking chairs, or the family name on the land deed. One leg first, then the rest of it. She folded the notice and put it back. The years passed the way a fence line grows, one post at a time, each one unremarkable in itself, until one morning you look up and find that it runs further than you can see to the end. They had a daughter in 1883, born in the farmhouse with a midwife from Fulton in attendance. They named her Ruth. A second daughter, Pearl, came in 85. Both girls grew up knowing the wide porch step as the center of the house, the place where the day's first and last things were said, where company was received, where problems were held out in the open air until they looked smaller than they had inside. Gideon's dairy herd grew from 4 cows to 11 over the decade. Vera's kitchen garden expanded twice more. She joined the Fulton Ladies' Reading Society in 1887 and became its secretary, because no one else kept clean minutes. Gideon added a second barn in 89, this one with wide steps on both sides, built the way he always built steps now, as though it were simply the sensible way. He was in his late 50s by the time the century turned. He walked more slowly then, the pine leg having been replaced twice, once in 88 and once in 94, and the mornings on the porch step grew longer and quieter, the coffee cooling in their hands while the light came up across the fields in no particular hurry. He died in the March of 1904, in the bedroom of the farmhouse, with Vera beside him and Ruth and Pearl in the doorway. He was 61 years old. He had farmed 214 acres for 37 years, more than half of them on a leg that was not his original one. The farm did not sell. Vera stayed. She lived another 19 years after Gideon. She was 81 when she died in the summer of 1923, in the same farmhouse, in the same bedroom. Ruth's daughter, a young woman named Clara, who had grown up spending summers at the farm, came to settle the house. Clara found the Bible in the chest of drawers beside the bed. It was a thick-spined edition with his name written in the front cover in his mother's hand. Gideon Henry Marsh, 1843. Between the pages of the Book of Ruth, and Clara would understand, later, that the page was not an accident, were 2 folded pieces of paper. The first was a letter in a woman's hand, dated March of 1881. My name is Vera Aldrich. I am 31 years old and I work the telegraph desk at the Millbrook rail station. I have read your notice carefully. The second was the original advertisement from the Millbrook Gazette. The paper was fragile at the folds and soft at the edges. Clara read it standing in the morning light of the bedroom, while the Callaway County fields lay quiet outside the window. I have one leg. I have 200 acres and a barn that does not leak. She stood there a long time. A man who led with what he lacked had nothing left to hide, and her grandmother had understood that the first morning she read those 2 sentences in 1881, before she set the paper down and reached for a pen. A new story arrives every Tuesday and Friday. If you'd like to be there when it does, subscribe. We'll see you then. The notice was printed in the Millbrook Gazette on a Thursday in March of 1881, set between a listing for seed corn and an advertisement for a dentist. It was not long. Most of them were not. But somewhere on Birch Street, a woman named Vera Aldrich read it, and then read it again, and then a third time, and then took out a sheet of paper and began to write back. She would keep his letters in a cigar box for the rest of her life. He would keep hers pressed inside a Bible beside the bed, alongside the notice, as though the two things together made one complete record. They did.